Continue the weekly Friday live stream thing I've been doing. Been sipping some delightful red wine this morning. Hope everybody's staying happy and healthy and safe. Today I'm going to walk through the live Philia music video that I did with my band, my homies. We had a lot of really awesome support. It's been super fun, like, releasing this video. I've had a lot of comments and stuff, so thanks for all the support and everybody that's been tuning in to the newest video. I'm actually going to play it in a second for you guys. Feel free to pop in the chat and say hey or whatever as we go. But I'm going to walk you through the process of how I mixed this song in Ableton Live. But I'm just going to kind of walk you through what we did. I'm going to play the video first, and then I'll show you how I mixed it, and everything from like dragging the stems into a new session to like mixing it down. And so yeah, let's check out the actual video, and then I'll show you how we pulled it off. It should be good times. Yeah, so that shaker solo at the end is pretty badass, huh? So, yeah, Curtis and Andy and Frank, we all recorded that. So I'm just gonna kind of show you the process of how that video was pulled off. Basically, what I did is I took all of my mastered stems. I keep a folder of all of the stems and everything. When I don't even master my own tracks because I feel like when I master my own songs, I'm hearing the same thing over and over and over for like forever. It drives me nuts. So I like to just be able to have somebody else do the final master, and I just mix everything and send the stems to him. He does a master of those stems, sends me back the stems, and I just keep all those in a folder. And what I did is I just basically took all of these, I drug them into a new Ableton Live set. So if you hold down Command or Control on a PC, then you can just basically stack all these tracks together when I drag them into a new live project. And then if I hit play right now, you just hear all of them play back. But basically what I did is I just did this. I took all the tracks and then I muted specific tracks like this saxophone. So I would just like mute this track and then I would just do a full bounce of this project. And I would just bounce this out and send it to Curtis, the saxophone player. And he would hear everything without his saxophone. And I just did that. And I did that for each one of the instruments, for the bass and for the guitar and whatever else. And then I took the new recordings that they gave me, and so we'll just pretend this is the same project, but I'm going to take you to the final project when it's actually done. Let me open it up. Here's the actual finished product. Let's check that out. Wait for it. But yeah, so I took all the tracks that they recorded live, I threw it into the session that had all of these tracks already existing in it, and this is what the final product looked like. But yeah, so all these black tracks here are the actual replaced live instruments. So when I got the saxophone, guitar, keys, I ended up just stacking those into a group and just turned it off. And then I have all these backing tracks that are still playing in the song. And then I had my live drums of me playing, and I just muted certain sections of the song when I was actually playing drums. You know, there's like that breakdown in the middle with the chill saxophone. And I ended up, if you saw in the video, I like walk over to the APC 40, which is like this beautiful controller right here, if you can see it. I took that, and you'll see I jump off my drums and I start like messing with effects and stuff from the other instruments. So I was putting all kinds of effects. I have this Philia effects rack that I made, and you'll see like there's some automation and dots. Let's actually play that and hear that back, see what it sounds like. So you can see like I was doing beat repeats and things, like this little wiggly auto filter. So I was just like, I basically hit record. I opened this project up on my laptop, and then as I was playing drums, I was listening to the full band with the new live stems that they sent me of them recording, and then I was just like affecting them in real time when I wasn't playing drums, and I jumped onto that APC. So yeah, I just recorded that real time, and then yeah, so basically just recorded on what was happening. I did the same thing for the guitar. I was affecting the guitar with that same rack, that Philia effects rack. And if anybody's a member on my site, Life Producers Online, just go to the download section. You'll find that Philia effects rack there, and you can download it. It's also in the DJ course. It should be in one of those lessons. You can download that as well. But it's basically just a couple beat repeats, and then I've got that auto filter and the spacey fade rack that I made. That's a good time. Maybe in the future I'll do a live stream on how to build that rack from scratch. That could be cool. But yeah, so then these are all the live recordings, the live shakers, and that nice little shaker solo at the end. But yeah, basically I just did some post mixing. I left all the original stems alone. Like these stems here, pretty much didn't do anything. I think I added a little bit extra EQ on here with Pro Q, but pretty much left those untouched, and then I just mixed the live instruments. And then I didn't have to do much of a mastering chain because the original stems we used were already mastered. So I just threw like a limiter on it and a little de-esser because I noticed like the hi-hat on the electric Roland drum kit I was playing was like a little sharp. So I did some like de-essing on the master. There's some other things peeking out. My favorite DS, if you don't know what a DSer is, it's basically just like a multi-band compressor. It's like a special compressor. It just takes like the harshness of like certain sounds. Like a lot of vocalists have DSers on their vocals because it's like what you call like sibilants. They'll say like an S or like an F, and it's just like sounds like a cat is like scratching your ear. It's like this terrible like sharp noise. So I do a little bit of DSing on my masters. I know a lot of mastering engineers do, but I did a little bit extra on this. And then I love FabFilter Pro DS. And then I used an L2, and I had the limiter, and all I did was just give it a little bit of a bump on the gain, so I just turned it up and compressed everything. The original tracks were already pretty compressed, so I was just really doing it for the sake of the new live instruments that we had in the session. And I just turned on the oversampling a little bit, which is just going to play this plugin back at a little bit higher quality. And then I had, I didn't do any additional dithering. That's pretty much it. Yeah, just kind of left it at its default settings in here. Actually, I probably would have turned the look ahead up a little bit. That's basically just telling the plugin to look ahead with the content coming into it and adjust accordingly. So yeah, that's nice. That's turning up that a little bit. I'll put like maybe at like 2 milliseconds look ahead or something. And then I used Insight just to kind of balance my metering. So for a master, I knew I was going to push this to like YouTube. I wasn't going to, the song was already released, so I'm not trying to distribute it to like Spotify or whatever. But I believe I bumped this somewhere probably close to like -11, -12 LUFS, which is LUFS is measuring the like average loudness as well as like the peaks and other things. So there's different ways that we listen and measure loudness in music, and LUFS factors in a lot of different things into once. So that's usually like the last meter I look at before I finish mastering a song and release it into the world. Anybody that wants to get into mastering. Yeah, I guess I was only hitting like -15, so that's kind of dope. I thought I was hitting that harder. I guess I could probably push the limiter even a little harder. I was thinking I was probably hitting this around -13 or 14. So I could probably even bump that up a little bit. I think I adjusted it again. Yeah. But anyway, so when I treated the drums, let's just listen to the drums dry before and after. I put a little drum bus on it. And without the drum bus, usually I don't really use presets anymore. I just kind of dial everything in because I feel like presets are a good way to like start learning plugins, but not necessarily something that I would rely on every single time because everything just sounds different depending on like the frequencies and the instrument and whatever else. But the drum bus is cool. I just did a little bit of a drive, and when you turn up the drive, it's going to get louder, so I'll usually pull down the makeup gain. Or the output, I'm sorry. I'll pull down the output because it's going to get louder, so I adjust there. And then the crunch is going to add a little bit of distortion and brightness, so I turn up the crunch a little bit. And then I dampen it, so that's just going to adjust the brightness, make it warmer or brighter. I set that like around 10 kilohertz or so. And then I bumped the transient a little bit, which makes the kick drum hit a little bit harder. You can tell that crunch is brightening it, and that transient's making that kick just punch a little bit. So yeah, that's tight. And then I've got the Pro Q2, my favorite EQ plugin in the whole wide world. It's amazing. And I just cut off a little bit of the extra low end. I found the kick was sounding a little bit muddy, so I just wanted to cut it off, which I usually do a cut on most instruments down here at like 15 or 16 hertz. Makes a little bit of a difference when all the tracks and everything are building up together. And then it was really kind of bright. So I ducked some of that because the cymbals were a little too bright in my face. So I pulled that back down. Yeah, that's pretty much the drums. For the saxophone, I noticed with saxophone, I like a fair amount of distortion or saturation. So let's listen to this. There's a goat sample that I used that a lot of people probably don't even notice. That's like right here before the next verse. If you listen right before it happens, you can hear like a meh. I just thought it was pretty fun, so I just like threw it in there. Found a random goat sample on YouTube. I mean, there really is no like explanation behind it. I just thought it was hilarious. Actually, you know what? I think I used the Taylor Swift goat sample. There's a video somebody made of like Taylor Swift singing, and then there was a goat like split screen. The goat was like singing, and they were like making a similar face, and it was, I don't know why, it was absolutely hilarious, but I thought was the goat that I sampled in this, now that I think about it. This has been a while. But yeah, I put some saturator on there. This is for the saxophone. Let's just loop this and hear kind of what we got. And I could even hear a little bit of him like touching the saxophone and messing with like his different, I don't know what you call it, Curtis, like little buttons, filters, I don't know. So I actually might tighten this up a little bit. Yeah, because you could hear that little like him like pressing with his fingers. You could hear that little whatever. So I should have done that. It's already released now, but I don't think you could tell with everything else going on. But in the future, I would have done that. Future me would be doing this. Yeah, so then we got saturation. All I did was just turn up the drive of the input. I turned on the DC filter, which like cuts out like the super low subs or extra low frequencies that are unnecessary. So I just usually turn that on a lot of times. I didn't really mess with the color. I thought it kind of sounded cool the way it was. I turned down the output. And I'll usually pull down the output as much as I drive the input. You can always change the different settings in here, but I just thought analog clip sounded the most natural. And then oftentimes I'll dry wet mix the entire 100% of the effect and just kind of pull it in. So in this case, I just left it all the way 100% wet. And then I love Pro Q. This is Pro Q2. There's Pro Q3 now, which is like new and improved, and it's actually a dynamic EQ, which is really cool, just meaning that these frequencies will bounce based off of like how high it's spiking, so it's more reactive to what the plugin is hearing, which is cool. But I basically just, if you hold your cursor down here at the bottom and then you wait for, notice that it's like creating this little curve of spikes. It creates like this little mountaintop, and then you can actually go in and take your little cursor and just pull down on some of the spiky frequencies that might be too much or whatever. That's basically what I did here with all these little sharp curves and cuts, because a lot of instruments, like even guitar especially, or saxophone, like some frequencies will really just like peak in your face and be pretty harsh, and this is just like a nice visual way to cut those out real fast. And then I noticed there's a lot of extra mud down here that I cleaned up, just kind of using a low shelf. And then I did my favorite compressor in the whole world, the LA2A. This is by Universal Audio. And I just added a little bit of compression to tighten them up. And it's literally just a gain knob. So this is like your output gain, and then you have your threshold, which is called peak reduction. But this is a really dope, famous compressor. It's been around for many years, and this is just a great emulation of the actual real compressor in real life. There's also Waves. They make their own version. They called Puig Child. And then like this is UAD, so you have to have like one of their interfaces or satellites to run their plugins. But I love this thing. It's super easy. It's literally 2 knobs. And then I ran all that through a D reverb. So the room that he recorded in, Curtis the saxophonist, had like this really awkward, like reverbed out sound. Like it sounded like he was like recording his saxophone like inside of a toilet bowl. It was just like this awkward, weird room, like echoey sound. So this is a D reverb plugin by Isotope. It's called RX D reverb. And so without it, let's just listen, and then I'll turn it on and off. You can hear, I just pulled down the reduction and cut out some of the extra awkward like room noise that was going on. So let me turn it off. And now with it on, where I cut out some of that reverb, it just sounds tighter. Like it just has like a tighter sound. And I didn't want to have to do that, but we only had so much to work with since we're all quarantined, so he wasn't able to actually come over to the studio. He just did this in his bedroom, so it worked out great. I think it sounded cool, but I'd use that to cut some of that nasty room noise out that I didn't like. And then I used some delay, just a little bit of feedback. I offset the left and the right stereo channel, so this is like eighth triplet notes, and this would be like eighth notes, or quarter notes. And then I chose dry wet, just a little bit, and use the ping pong delay, which just means the left and the right side are going to bounce from like my left headphone to my right headphone, so it's like a stereo bounce type of thing. And then I did a Pro Q, just some more cuts on it afterwards. So like, I've had people ask me starting out producing, like, how many EQs or compressors do you use? And there's like no perfect answer. It's just keep creating a chain until it sounds good. But typically I'll put saturation usually at the beginning of the chain, and then delays and reverbs usually towards the end. That's just kind of like signal flow 101 that I've experimented with. But yeah, so this is cool. The guitar, let's go to the guitar next. For the shakers, I didn't really have to do much. I just put auto pan on there, so it just kind of shakes left to right. It kind of has like this cool stereo effect. And I think I just cut off some of the lows right here. Let me pull this back up. Yeah, so I just did like a high pass filter and ducked a little bit of the highs. And then the J37 plugin, I love this tape plugin. Basically, this was used at like Abbey Road Studio. The Beatles use this. A lot of other people use the real machine in real life. But this is by Waves Audio, and this plugin's really dope. It gives it like a nice warm, like thick sound. So I put that on the saxophone, or I should have put that on the saxophone. I think I accidentally deleted it before. But yeah, I put that on all of the live instruments because I had this J37 tape machine in the original track that I produced. So in the original recording, this was on all the tracks. And since we re-recorded the live instruments, I just put these back on here too. I really don't do much with it. I basically just, sometimes I'll turn up the saturation. There's a little saturate right here. And then the formula is just like the different tape setting. Usually set at like 815. And then I can just turn up and see how hard it's actually smacking. I like to hit it close to the red, but not quite to the red, unless you're like really trying to overdrive and distort the sound. So let me go back and find this guitar. Here's his solo. It's like he just rips like a killer badass solo. My homie Dakota. But yeah, if I just turn up a little bit of saturation, it's going to give it a little bit of grit, and then I'll drive it up to close to the red without actually slamming it, which I guess you could. I mean, there's no right or wrong here, but I think for this guitar, it sounded good. Just slam it a little bit. I might pull it back down. Yeah, so I'll just kind of watch it and let the loudest, highest hits like touch up to the red, and then let the rest of it bounce around here. But yeah, the J37's a dope plugin. And then I just threw Ableton Live's pedal on there. So without it, let's just listen. And then now if I turn on the pedal, let's see what we got. Yep, and I just boosted a little bit of the mids and a little bit of treble to give it some brightness. I like the overdrive. There's like 2 other settings in here if you really wanted to grind it like real hard. But I thought the overdrive sounded a little bit cleaner. Turned on the sub so it gives a little bump in the low end, and then I've got this dry wet. I didn't want it to like slam all the way, so I just kind of pulled it back so the guitar could breathe a little bit with the original tone that he had dialed in. And then he just sent this to me completely dry. Like he just did a direct line in when he recorded his guitar. And then I threw that into Guitar Rig, which I can actually delete this one. But yeah, I mixed cabs. If you are a guitar player, you know anybody playing guitar, Guitar Rig is like the king of emulations in my mind. There's a lot of other guitar plugins out there that are really great. Like, don't get me wrong, but I like Guitar Rig. And I used like this Vox Vox amp, and then I use this this like blue cab. There's a lot of different emulations. Like they have like an orange amp. Oh, that's not the orange amp, sorry. There's a bunch of different emulations. They have like a Vox and like an orange and a Fender Deluxe and other amps in there too. But I like the way this sounded. And then I did some compression behind it, which usually guitar you compress pretty well. Yep, so I just slammed that, say like I let it hit that threshold with this peak reduction to like -4 or 5 dB that it was hitting. And then I've got this little micro shift, and this is, dude, this is my secret weapon. I love this thing, like literally. It's the best chorus effect in my mind. You've got like 3 different flavors, and if you do 3, that's going to have the most like detuned and spread stereo wideness. For like a chorus effect, it's like basically detuning what it's hearing and then also making it sound wider. So this is more extreme, one is just like more subtle, and I don't really use a ton of it unless I'm trying to do something really weird, but even just a little bit makes the guitar sound bigger and wider. So we can, and it's not super crazy noticeable, but if you have headphones or speakers or whatever and you're listening to this stuff, you'll notice a bigger difference. So let's try it without. Let's listen to a different part. We've heard that a million times. Let's do that over here. And you can also see I was affecting his guitar with the beat repeat and the effects rack over here I was playing live. But yeah, without it, and then I'll play with it. Let's listen. Now with it. Yeah, so it definitely makes it sound wider and bigger. Love that thing. Ableton Live's chorus effect too works really great if you wanted to go that route. The chorus effect here can be pretty dope too if you wanted to like swap this out or whatever. You can mess with the dry wet here. I probably would like pull down the high pass and then turn off the delay too. And then you can move around the modulation to get like a different tone of this chorus effect. Yeah, something like that, and then you can A/B test them. Yeah, so anyway, same kind of effect. I love Sound Toys. They make cool stuff. And then we've got the Pro Q2. Like I said, a lot of guitar gets really spiky, so a lot of times I'll just like kind of cut some of that out. And then using Ableton Live's Echo, I'll clean up with the filter here that you can open up, and then I'll just pull back a little bit of feedback, a little bit of dry wet, turned up the reverb, and pulled back the decay of the reverb so it didn't, the tail of it wasn't sustaining like too long and awkward. Yeah, that's pretty much the main part of it. The bass guitar, I ended up bouncing and freezing, so I don't really have that. The other thing was the keys for like the main drop with Andy when he played keys. Let's check that out. Let's listen. So I actually doubled this part. I took the original recording and left it in because he played the exact same thing twice, and it just sounded fatter and bigger the second time around when we recorded this live video. Yeah, basically I just threw down this Culture Vulture. This is like my favorite distortion effect. Ableton Live Saturator is kind of the alternative to this, but this is a universal audio plugin, and this is it's like a British amp, and it's really famous. It's been used for many years. The Thermionic Culture Vulture. This thing's a beast. Let's turn it on and off, and I'll just kind of sample it for you. You can show you. Yeah, it just really like distorts that thing hard. Obviously it got a lot louder, but it does sound better. And then just cut off some of the highs because it was a little too bright. just kind of warmed it up. And then I actually, like I said, I layered that part with the original recording we had back in here for the lead keys. So this was the original. And I just turned it down, and then I just layered it with his new recording. And that's Valhalla Vintage Verb. It's like my favorite reverb in the whole world. Just adjusted the decay, did a low cut down here, a little bit of a high cut, and then just mixed it in with the original. Just kind of blended the original recording with this one. And then I also pulled out that Sound Toys micro shift that I showed you to like widen and just kind of make it sound thicker and a little detuned. And then just that same compressor I used before. So when I'm producing with like these kind of tracks, a lot of times I try to keep consistent plugins like throughout the track, just to keep a consistent sound when it comes to like analog modeling. Like I've used this compressor on almost all the tracks, using that J37, that tape machine on all the tracks. Yeah, that kind of thing. So hopefully this is like a good little inside scoop and show you guys how I produced the song. Really didn't do much the timing of anybody. Everything for the most part was all pretty much originally recorded. I didn't really mess with the timing of stuff. You can see like these clips are actually unwarped, so I didn't try to lock in the timing because everybody that played is a badass on their instruments and they just made it really easy for me. So I basically just cut out certain parts because like his guitar, there was some fuzz and humming in between when he was playing. So I just like chopped it up. That's what that cut up clip is. Not because they messed up during the recording. But anyway, yeah, hope you guys have a super dope Friday. I'll be doing these just like track dissects and random stuff every Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern. Have a wonderful weekend, guys. I'll see you next time. Like, comment, subscribe. Also, at the bottom of the screen, you can see there's a liveproducersonline.com/masterclass. I've been doing a lot more work with people who want help getting started. Some people have like years of Ableton Live experience and they just want to refine and need help releasing more tracks, and I work with them on a weekly basis. It's a 12-month program, so it's like a 1-year masterclass. Right now it's 40% off, so if you guys want to go deep and learn how to produce like this or perform from studio to stage with Ableton Live, you need help mixing, mastering, whatever, I'm going to create like a whole annual list of goals for you, and then we'll just work up to all those goals for the full 12 months together. So check that out. Just go to liveproducersonline.com/masterclass. Would love to help you get started working on your projects and take your music to the next level. I'm Dan Giffen. Check out Philia. It's my band. Have a rad Friday. Go wash your hands.